Some say ghosts linger because of unfinished business. Others say they are drawn to places filled with life and death. But in the case of the old Miri hospital, maybe it's not the patients who stayed behind, but the ones who were supposed to care for them. If you ever find yourself near Marina Bay in Miri, take a look at those new shop lots and parking lots and ask yourself what used to be right beneath your feet. Hello fellow creeps, and thank you very much for joining us here on Creepy with Coffee. If this story sends shivers down your spine, don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, and now let's get on to the story.
This is Creepy with Coffee.
The Old Miri General Hospital was the first of its kind in the region, built near the end of the Miri River Peninsula, not far from the quiet fishing village of Kampong Pulau Melayu. Constructed by the Dutch oil giant Shell with state funding, it served as Miri's lifeline since its inception, until the 1960s when ownership was handed back to the Sarawak state government. Alongside the hospital, a ferry service was introduced to connect the hospital to Miri town, carrying patients, doctors, and the dead alike across the water. With it came quarters for staffs, utilities, and a growing community. For decades, the hospital was the heart of healthcare in Miri, treating everything from fever, childbirth, to horrific accidents. But eventually, a new facility was built in Lopeng, and the original building was abandoned, left to rot, until the land was redeveloped into what today stands Marina Bay. But to those born there, to those who have worked there, the memories run deep, and for some, terrifyingly unforgettable. Now, the most infamous of all the hospital's tales? The story of the 7 faceless nurse who haunted the very ferry meant to serve life and death. Countless staff and locals speak in hushed tones of those ghostly figures. 7 women in spotless white uniforms, always seen standing silently, gazing into the river. No eyes, no mouth, no face. One former hospital worker, interviewed in 2004, recounted a horrifying night in the late 1970s. He and a colleague boarded the ferry, which was given a name Nightingale, one late evening. The wharf was nearly empty. Well, this is late at night. As they waited, they saw a group of nurses in full uniform silently boarded the ferry and stood nearby them. But as they were walking in, instead of looking towards them or into the ferry, their face was facing the river. And when they moved, their body was kind of like still. It's like a doll, according to the former hospital worker. Something felt off, very off. That is when these 2 friends, the person who gave the interview and also another colleague, saw the ferry worker walked in and stood very near to the 7 nurses. The person who stood there took out a cigarette and smoked, as if the nurses are not there. The real horror came when the ferry docked. The 7 figures didn't move, and when the 2 men disembarked and turned back to look, every single nurse turned in unison to look at these 2 people, and it revealed the front face of them. There were nothing. It's just flat skin where faces should be. The two men, without saying a word, fled, never to forget what they saw. Years after that, in 2005, a group of researchers prepared a second paranormal investigation of the ruins, now swallowed by jungle. Another ex-staff member stepped forward. He had worked night shift and always took the same route home, through the road leading to Kampong Pulau Melayu. One night, as he passed beneath a towering fig tree near the children's ward, he saw a lady walking as if the lady was walking back home. And from the back, that lady actually looked like a nurse, walking alone back home. This kind young man, thinking the nurse might need a ride home, he slowed down. But just as he was about to speak, the lady came closer, stepped into the light, and that is when the man saw the lady. Similar story like the 7 nurses. She had no face. The person revved up his motorbike and fled. He wouldn't return to work for several days, bedridden by fever. A fever locals believe was from the spiritual possession. In another time, a group of paranormal investigators conducted a nighttime investigation when some of the old hospital structures still stood. Their focus was at the old morgue. That night, they heard things, eerie, soft laughter behind them. But when they turned back, there was no one. A sickening stench, like rotting flesh, followed them wherever they go, not just at the morgue, even far beyond the building. The stench was strongest near the old ferry dock. Then it happened. While recording EVP audio, they froze in fear. Across the dark ruins of a nearby staff quarters, they saw 7 white-clad figures standing motionless. They retreated to their vehicle, but as the engine started, the headlights dimmed, and in the rear-view mirror, they all saw them. The 7 faceless nurses standing behind their car, watching. Panicked, they drove off, but hit something in their escape. The car's front bumper cracked, and somehow the engine just died. They left it behind, and they just ran as fast as they could. These aren't isolated events. The story of the 7 faceless nurses echoes among former staff, researchers, and local lore. Some say the hauntings are real, others call them nonsense. But those who have tracked the shadows, who have stood in the ruins, who have felt the air grow colder, they believe its spirits are more than just echoes of death. They are triggered by decades of suffering, births, deaths, trauma, blood spill, lives lost. And maybe, just maybe, they still walk the ground that has since become a bustling row of shops. What if you have parked on what was once the hospital ground? So next time when you are in Marina Bay, Miri, enjoy the lights and the sea breeze. Spare a thought for what once stood there. The screams, the silence, the 7 white uniforms. And if you ever hear the sound of a ferry's engine late at night, even though the ferry stopped decades ago, don't turn around. Don't look at them, because if you do, you might see them, and they might just see you with no eyes at all. This has been another Creepy with Coffee story. Sleep tight if you can.